Hello, this is David Walmsley, and this video is really to say hello. So, hello, and also to let you know a little bit about what it is that we do to look after your WordPress website over at wpcornershop.com, which might confuse you a little bit because many of you will probably know Maria Vincent and her business. Now, we work together, and I tend to do this side of things on the looking after sites at the end here. So that's how I come into it. If you've not heard of me before, well, I'm kind of slapped around the internet quite a lot at the moment because I started doing a YouTube channel here for people who work in our industry, for other developers of websites, and I also do a WordPress podcast as well with a fellow Brit called Nathan down here. So that's something that we turn out weekly. So you can pretty much Google me and find out everything you need to know if you think I might be a little bit of a dodgy character, but that's me. And we do these plans now. Some of you will be on what I would now consider our legacy plan, where we're only doing your care and you do your own hosting. From next year, it's just unfortunate. Everybody has to move to either our hosting and care, or unfortunately, we can't serve you any longer because we found with a lot of the third-party hosting, it's really not up to scratch, or it starts to not be up to scratch, and we can't really do our side of the deal if the servers aren't running as well as they should be, or there's downtime. It just takes us too long to do that. So it's just not worth our while trying to look after a site. But largely the plans that we've got, and if you haven't checked it out, I'll put the link below, so you probably want to check what we've got here. I've covered, I think, most of the information that you need to know and made it clear what there is here. And this ties up with also our monthly report, which I send out. And this is really the purpose for this. Let me bring up my test one here. So we're in September now, and I'm ready to send out the August reports to you. And do you need to look at these? Well, not really, but it might be handy. The information you've got down here, the list of stuff, this is just our way of saying, look, you know, you've paid your money, and there's some proof that we are actually doing something. We haven't just taken the money and sitting around drinking coffee and doing nothing. We actually do something, and we do it daily, but it doesn't reflect actually what we do. But there is another purpose for the monthly report, because we want to make sure that you know about stuff as a business owner that might impact on your business as a website owner. So I'm somebody who keeps abreast of all the stuff that's going on the net and what kind of changes are happening, and I want to have some way of being able to deliver that information. So it's worth popping in and just checking out whether there's any information from me that is significant, and you can largely ignore that, or just take a look just to see that we actually are doing something. It's not completely blank. Okay, so a couple of examples on what might come in here is, I'm sure I'll be talking very soon about next year in May, there's going to be some new EU regulation on data protection, which is going to have an impact on all websites. We're not sure exactly what that will mean, but we'll be looking out for that and letting you know whether something needs to change on your website, because potentially there are fines that go with this legislation and not complying with it. So we'll let you know about that kind of stuff. This year I mentioned a few times, and probably will mention again, that Google have taken it upon themselves to see that the whole internet is going to be secure and running through what we call HTTPS. So security needs a security certificate issued to that website to add a layer of encryption on it. Now, most sites previously didn't have this. This is the year where things are changing. They have the control because they've already said that if you don't have a HTTPS site, you're going to have a lower standing in the rankings, so you're likely to lose some traffic to your site. But also they own the Chrome browser, which is the most popular browser out there, and so they can display these messages. And apparently in October, not absolutely confirmed, we do know something's happening in October, but we believe that any site now that takes any visitor data, and that's pretty much going to be nearly all of the sites, because there's contact forms on most sites, it may say not secure here and have a nice big X to put people off as well. So, these are changes. These are important changes that I'm sure most business owners will not know about because they're just busy doing the business that they do. And that's, kind of why we think our service is quite useful, just to keep you up to date on those kind of things. But as I say, the rest of it is all about plugin updates. This is because this is automated information we can get. So when we put your site into or connect it to our main WordPress site, we can do all of the updates from it for all of the sites, so it makes it a lot quicker than it would you. And we do this daily, sometimes twice a day, to check for updates. We do that for security reasons because WordPress is it's so popular. It's 60% or over 60% of all content management systems out there. So that's all websites where you can update your own content. It's 60% of those. So hackers are always looking out for this. They know that many WordPress owners don't update their sites very often, and we know that most people are public about where there are security breaches and where things need to be up to date. So it's pretty easy for an amateur hacker to go along and just search out all the sites who haven't had an update and go and hack them. So that's why we try and keep up to date on that. If you don't know what a plugin is, I'll try and do my best to explain it. So we have WordPress, which is this big open source project which is run by a commercial body, but it's owned by the community and develops. Over the last few years, and particularly next year, there's going to be quite some big changes with it, which is why we feel we need more care plans, because there's been bigger progressions in the WordPress community. More updates are coming out. But that's a basic core product. It's fine if you're just a blogger and that's all you do. It works. You don't need much more than a cheap theme with it. You do need some plugins probably to make it work, but we're talking about websites that have other functionality, like more complex forms. We have a page builder that we use that can quickly build out websites and allow you to change some of your data on your website, and a whole host of other things. And these are plugins which we pay a premium for. We have a license, we pay you a subscription, and we put our licenses on your website for you, so we get all of those updates. If you were to go and try and buy these licenses themselves, it would be more in the region of £300 a year to buy those things. So we do that, but even though we do that and we have these premium software, there is always the potential where the plugin form that does the plugin that does forms could conflict with something like the Beaver Builder page builder form, because they're working independent. And that's kind of where our job is. When we update this, we often need to know what's changing. And there are two ways we do this. I'm particularly a big fan of going for same software where I trust the developers behind it, and I try and make relationships with those people. I try to help them out by being a beta tester for things that are coming up, so I can squash some of the bugs or report those bugs to the developers. But even if I'm not doing that, part of our job is to just keep an eye out on the change logs. So there's the Beaver Builder plugin, and here they tell you everything that's changing in each of their releases. So I know whether this could or is likely to affect another plugin along the way. So that's a large part of our work, is keeping up to date with the kind of community stuff, so we know whether it's time to change a plugin, maybe whether there's likely to be some conflicts. And of course, that's the main deal here, what you're paying for, apart from the hosting, which I believe is much better than any of the shared hosting. Bit of a promotion there. We add the certificate as well for you. We also make sure that we do all of those repairs and fixes which need to be there. So that's largely what we'll do when something's gone wrong. We may not always know, so we leave it to you to report it, but we have a good idea, and we kind of avoid the problem happening before it happens, or we often just go and fix this stuff and you won't know about it. It's not included in your monthly report. We don't go and start listing what we've done. We may see something that will affect a few sites, and we'll just go around and make a change to this, or we'll get the developer to make a change to their plugin, and that's largely what we're doing. And yeah, I think that's it. Let's have a look at quickly the other things that are in here. So our backups, we do that. We send to make sure that you haven't just got everything on your server and could potentially lose everything, even when you're with a hosting service that says they do backups. If they lose everything, you've lost everything. We make sure that it's in another place as well, so we don't have that problem. We store it with Amazon because that's who most people trust, because they look after an awful lot of data for the internet. And we also do security checks in different forms. We run a plugin in the back end of the site, which is monitoring all the time any changes to files, any logins or false attempts to log in to the back end of the site. And we will get emails on this to tell us something is a little bit odd. We wouldn't trust someone who doesn't know what they're doing with this kind of plugin, because it would send them emails, and it does contain false positives. Sometimes there's some file changes which they're not aware should have changed. So if you were to act on the information, even if you understood it, you could sort of damage your site. So this is something that we kind of keep a check on, just to make sure that stuff's working there. We also try and look out. We think it's not going to happen, but we, as a double check, we go and check and scan those kind of services that check whether sites have been blacklisted by different sort of major security checks, you know. So you want to make sure that you're not on anybody's list as a blacklisted site as well. Chances are that will not happen if we're looking after your security, but we check it anyway. And we also do speed as well. Now, this is something to mention in the report. It's at the bottom here. It says hosting uptime, and here it's saying it's 100%. Now, I don't even think it is. It kind of rounds this up. This is probably the weakest thing in our automated our setup, our email that we send to you. So you take it with a pinch of salt. We get an email because we use a service called Uptime Robot, which lets us know if your site's down, so we know if there's a problem. We just wanted to try and include something in the report, but this is a little bit unreliable. But certainly we would be letting you know, well, we would be doing something if you were falling below an unacceptable amount of downtime. And downtime, if somebody says they're 100% uptime, it's a lie, because that's not really truthful. In some form or another, you have downtime. We need to update the plugins so your site can't run on some of the times when we do that. It's only for, you know, seconds or minutes or something, and we need to do certain server updates as well. Everybody does, and if they're not, then they're probably not doing their job properly. So the uptime 100% is just a fiction. No one can deliver that unless they're running it over multiple servers all over the place, swapping between one to the other. And no one can pay for that kind of stuff, apart from a very few big companies. And I know now that I'm waffling on, so it's probably time for me to get off and say goodbye, because I doubt there's anybody still listening to it for this length of time. Anyway, nice to talk to you. I hope this is useful in some form, and I'm going to say goodbye. Bye-bye.